Welcome to From Guilt to Good, self-care solutions for busy caregivers. If you're a caregiver feeling stretched thin and longing for self-care, you are in the right place. I'm Jeanette Yates, your fellow caregiver and self-care guide. After years of research, self-exploration, and trial and error, I finally found a way to create a sustainable self-care practice that helped me feel good and not guilty. And From Guilt to Good, we'll explore how you can do that too. Together, we hear expert insights, actionable steps, and heartfelt stories to guide you toward rediscovering your worth, reclaiming your health, and getting back the life you have been too busy or exhausted to enjoy. Today, we have a very special episode. I am honored to welcome Dr. George Ackerman. He is many things. He's a doctor, he's an advocate, he's a champion for Parkinson's awareness, among many, many other interests I'm sure that he'll tell us about. But most importantly, he is Sharon Riff Ackerman's son. George and his family started TogetherForSharon for the purpose of keeping his mother, Sharon Riff Ackerman, her memory alive, and to share the message of Parkinson's awareness and hope for a cure. And today he's going to share more about his work, raising awareness, and his journey as a caregiver for his mother. Hi, George. How are you?
Good. Thank you and your listeners for giving me the opportunity to be on. It's very important that not only do we talk today about my mother's memory and what I'm doing, but really to reach those inside, but also more importantly, oddly enough, outside of the Parkinson's community, because there's a lot of things happening that are actually going very exciting and historic right now.
Yeah, and I really think, we were talking about this a little bit before I hit record, but, one of the things that you were saying is like, how there's an opportunity for us to take action as caregivers, as people in the community. And a lot of times as caregivers, we feel like we have no control over anything and it's all really hard. But when you have something that you can do to make a difference, it is really empowering. And so I think that when we get to that part of the episode, I can't wait for you to tell us how we can help spread awareness and find a cure for Parkinson's. So, but first, one of the things that comes across in all of the social media profiles, I think we are connected everywhere. I think we're even connected on LinkedIn, which is I'm still trying to get the hang of it over there. But one of the things that really comes through is your love of your mother. And so I just want to give you a few minutes to tell us about your mom, Sharon, and just give us a little background.
Yeah, my mother was a very friendly, kind, beautiful person, loved animals, loved her grandkids, and really was, in a way, my backbone and my support throughout my whole life. As you mentioned, I have a PhD. It's in criminal justice, but I'm also an attorney in Washington and Florida. And I'm also a police officer. I'm reserved now. But I remember her standing right next to me through every single step of my journey, right there supporting me, never negative, always pushing me to, when I wanted to give up or quit on things. I mean, the dissertation alone took 7 years, and that's, I think I almost quit 12 times, and she and my wife too just urged me not to. So again, I don't feel that I would be the man I am today if it wasn't for her. Unfortunately, in 1/1/2020, she found out, she had Parkinson's disease. For many years, she didn't really talk about it. She only had some trouble with her left hand, like stiffness. So it caused a little issue when we went out to eat, but not like something that would change her life too bad. I look back today and wonder maybe we all didn't know much about Parkinson's. Some people are ashamed of it and don't want to talk about it. But unfortunately, towards the end, the last 4 years, I was kind of repelled and thrown into her whole world, and I became a caregiver because she ended up going to a special program where it was kind of like the last hope. We tried everything, like you name it, we tried it. And that night at 4 a.m., I was rushed over to her home, called, and I'm used to, going to homes late at night for law enforcement, but not for your own parents or family. She was moving her furniture out of her house in fear that someone was going to harm her. So I had to rush her to the hospital because, again, not forget even caregiving. As a son, I was very frightened, scared, no clue what to do. I'm not trained for that. I didn't even know it was wrong. We rushed her there. They said we saved her life. And part of me thinks that's great, but then the other part is after that, it just got worse, like her health. So, but that wasn't even the sad part, which is already bad. And again, I want to bring a lot more positive light to our conversation. But I had to go home to get a few of her clothing, and she had Post-it notes around the room, And it was really one of the most heartbreaking days of my life when on each post-it note were names of people who were deceased and pets, and she wasn't sure who was alive and who wasn't there. And that's because late onset dementia also kicked in. So the delusions and the hallucinations were really very frightening to even talk about or handle today.
Well, and that's something that, you mentioned. We don't talk a lot here about like the disease process itself for our loved ones typically, but I do think, one of the things about raising awareness that people may not know about Parkinson. I have a family member that has Parkinson's as well, and I know that it's not just that typical like thing that you see on TV that on a TV show about Parkinson's. Like there's a lot of things like the delusions and the different things that happen, and then when it's compounded with the dementia, it can be even just more terrifying. And that had to be very, very tough for her, but then also you as her son. So I know that because you had that experience and caregiving with her, and you're also like your job and your career is about this sense of justice and rightness, that's one of the things I think that has compelled you to this awareness piece now with TogetherForSharon. So I know that that is another way that it's continuing to be in memory of her, is this idea that you're continuing that fight for justice in that different way, right?
I mean, it's funny you say that because I made the same correlation the other day. I used to fight, and I still do, but for family members of homicide victims. So a lot of the time, it's not just about the victim, sadly. Sometimes they're not with us anymore. But then the family becomes secondary victims, so they're forgotten by the criminal justice system. So a lot of my work in my dissertation actually was on African American mothers who lost their loved one due to murder in West Palm Beach, Florida. So we did a lot of work with them, but then I kind of correlate, like you said, the Parkinson's community, because since last year, our government, or the United States, our history, legislation forgot about people with Parkinson's, and now, again, there's a national bill which was spearheaded by the Michael J. Fox Foundation. It's called the National Plan to End Parkinson's Disease, and I'm honored to say, sitting here, that I was actually able to speak to my representative last year and poured my heart out on how important it is. She supported it, but they passed it through the House in December, almost like an incredible gift for everybody for the holiday. And now this year, I urge everyone listening, and even you, to contact your senator, because now it went from the House to the Senate. I have two senators in Florida, both Marco Rubio and Rick Scott have agreed to sign on. I've spoken to their office, and it's really great that people can actually play a role in making history. It'll help fund more research. It'll help find ways to find diagnoses earlier. It'll help, obviously, like we're doing, advocacy, but it's also so much more. And I've been really lucky to be a part of it because I've been in close with some of the public policy individuals in the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And just last week I interviewed a United States representative for New York, Paul Tonko, who is actually one of the sponsors and helped pass the law. So it's really exciting, again, to be part of history.
Yeah, and I think that's so important to think about, like you mentioned, the secondary victim or the secondary person that's affected by either, like you were talking about, in the criminal world, but also I think that's one of the things that we can do as caregivers. And that's one of my missions with the self-caregiver is, the disease affects the entire family, and being able to be a caregiver for someone else requires that we take care of ourselves. And when we do that, we are better able to care for our loved one, and also, like you mentioned, be advocates for them, both, in their individual health journey, but also, like you're doing now, on a broader scale that can change the world. So that's just amazing to me. But I want to dive a little bit more into your experience as a caregiver when your mother, how did that look for you? Like, what did your caregiving look like for your mom? Like, some people, like, yeah, like
it was not planned. I mean, that's funny. Again, I don't want to keep shamelessly plugging you, but the guilt guilt to good is like, it makes me think, because as a caretaker, I felt very guilty. Why? Because I tried, like, honestly, I put, as a lawyer and a cop, I put a list, and I checked off every single list, and I just kind of ended with nothing and a blank page, and just kept trying to find more and more, and where's this damn, sorry for the French, but cure? And it was very, very frustrating, upsetting. You have your loved one holding their hand, very scared for the future, or even today. I don't lie, I didn't lie, and I couldn't tell her how I wanted to, so I felt really, again, guilty, but then, again, the end to the story, the advocacy today is good, but during it was not. It was tough. One area I wanted to touch on was, even coping with Parkinson's disease, also the caregiver. Like you said, I felt like I secondarily, which is not great to say, but felt like I had Parkinson's because obviously I didn't have the diagnosis. But I didn't sleep. I was stressed. I didn't see my own kids and family for a while because anything she needed, we actually moved her closer to a community. But I swore that no, she wouldn't go to a home, and even to the last day she didn't. Unfortunately, we bought a really nice big house, but there's a room here still next door for her, and she never made it. So it kind of still gives me guilt and heartbreak today. But I think through advocacy, like speaking to you, it's almost like my psychology, which sounds odd. But I'm meeting such inspirational people fighting the disease. I've made friends who've become like family, and there's nights even last night I don't sleep, just thinking about not just what my mother went through, but I realized a few months ago when I learned there's 1 million people in the U.S., but that's growing very rapidly because it's the highest. It's a neurodegenerative disease that's growing, unfortunately, very rapidly here in the U.S., but about 10 million people have it around the world. And I realize it's not just about our journey anymore, it's about everybody. And I feel like being on today, we're all become like a family, because it's a fight that if we don't have everybody, including all your listeners, that we'll never find a cure. But I'm very hopeful, that with this opportunity today, with us continuing our relationship and also helping the show grow, and all your listeners, I greatly appreciate the time that we'll be able to again move this it's very urgent, but find a cure. But coping, while this is a very progressively slow disease, for the caregiver it's also slow because it's draining. She was very healthy, but that 4th year, she went from a good health, not overweight, but good, weight, and she just continually went down, skinnier and skinnier, and it was just horrible to see, someone who's be able to walk and love fitness, but then go to the cane, then go to the wheelchair, then go to, the walker, then the wheelchair, then bed bound, and it was just something that they tell you, you don't die from Parkinson's, you die with it, which is a problem because my mother didn't have anything else. But I do want everyone to know, listening, I'm not a medical doctor, but what my journey is with my mother and what she went through does not mean that's the same for someone else. So everybody, that's why this disease is so tough, because really every single, like you, family member, everybody is going to it's so different. Now they might have some similar things like tremors. My mother didn't have external like Michael J. Fox has, but she had internal. She had dyskinesia, where the dystonia, the curling of the toes, and rigidity. But again, everybody, has it, different things, but daily routines are affected. Even so, she loved to have her friends. Socializing was much harder. I feel some of them actually kind of abandoned her, which was sad, because they didn't know how to act. I don't blame anyone. It's really the disease's fault. I don't blame doctors who couldn't help her. We went to 7 or 8 experts. They just, it's just no answer. And, the changes are really hard to accept, to be honest. But there are support groups. There weren't that's why I started TogetherForSharon. I couldn't find anyone to help. So, that's what we did, put all the resources there and just so much more. We just never have the time to get everything. And actually honored, but I'm meeting Michael J. Fox February 2nd. I'm really excited. And to me,
I saw that on I think you mentioned that on one of your social posts. I saw that. I think that's so exciting.
He's a hero to me because, again, I might not have Parkinson, but again, we started this conversation saying how there's some stigma. I've been able to honor it in the last few months. I stopped it a little bit, but I've interviewed over 450 people throughout the world, from Africa to India to, you name it, France, Spain, Italy, Australia, and people have been diagnosed, and people who have foundations or advocates, caregivers around the world. It's on TogetherForSharon. It's all free. Even the people I interviewed was free. I don't do any of this. I don't accept donations. I don't want money, which again, people look at me like, well, that's be crazy because, I do put a lot of time in, but I only want a cure, and I want people to know they're never alone because I felt alone. But, he's a hero because he, in a way, hate saying the word came out, but in a way he did, because he could have hid behind, this disease. He even wrote, and I read his book, his movie last year, that there were many years he didn't want to tell anyone. He didn't want to lose celebrity in the movies and the amazing career he had. So he, again, to me and to many, he's a hero. And it's actually for a comic thing and it's for Back to the Future, but I'm going for Parkinson's awareness, and I'm going to hopefully get a few minutes with him just to tell him about Together for Sharon, but I might get tossed out quickly, so.
Probably not. Well, one of the things that I'm really thinking about as you're talking, and I'm thinking about my listeners that are part of the self-caregiver community. And one of the things that we talk about is that everybody's journey as a caregiver is different, and how you respond and cope and manage and all those things is individual. So we all have different ways we take care of ourselves. We all have different ways that we cope with the stress of caregiving. But one of the things that I've come across some caregivers that feel this way, and I really can tell from talking to you too that whereas for some people everything that you do would be draining, it would be too difficult to manage and handle, but it sounds like it gives you life and gives you momentum in a way, and so I love that we each have our own way to process and share our experiences as caregivers. And I love that you're balancing the awareness for Parkinson's, but then also just letting people know that whether they have Parkinson's or their loved one does, that there's somebody that is there to listen, to support, to encourage. And then, of course, you're also encouraging all of us to use our voices as long as we can and as loud as we can. So I do appreciate that about you so much. You mentioned, yeah, go ahead.
I always say to people, I'm in an odd world because I don't have Parkinson's and my mother, unfortunately, is no longer with us. So I've been to 20 groups, but I can't speak because I don't want to talk about my journey if they're still with them. So luckily, and I guess all my work advocacy, people are noticing, which is really nice, even though I didn't ask for any of it. And somebody reached out. It's called the PSP Awareness. They're a big organization, and they asked me, how we could work together. Well, I said, well, why don't we start, completely free? I don't get paid to. It's free. A support group for people who lost their loved one due to any disease. So it's not just Parkinson's. So it's next month. I'm excited. It's our first one. It'll be online through webinar. It's completely confidential. It won't be recorded. Obviously, I respect everyone's, privacy as a lawyer and things. And it's just important, I think, to be able to have a place that's safe for people who, I call it sadly the aftermath, but afterwards, because they're not forgotten, they're not over, they're still grieving, and I'm still grieving. So I wanted a place where I can meet other people and we can just talk, and that's going to be actually very excited for it because it's going to be like, something I've been looking for 4 years, and it's time.
I love that you mentioned that, and I would love to put information in the show notes for people, because I do have a lot of people that are still, their quote caregiving journey is over, but they're still carrying all of that grief and just unsure where to go. And they're learning how to take care of themselves again after maybe not doing such a great job taking care of themselves. And so I know that having a space where they can come would be very helpful. And of course, we, in my community, we talk about that too, but I think there is, I would love to share anything that you're doing as well. And then what is the best way that someone can, I'm sure there's a link that I can give people that lets them know what the numbers are for their senators. I'm sure I can just Google that.
If you go to TogetherForSharon.com and click on About Us, you'll see a button to support. That'll bring them right to the link. Then also on the first page, if you scroll down or you might look around, you'll see the National Plan to End Parkinson's Disease, and you'll actually be able to see the bill, you hear my speech. But if they go to the Michael J. Fox Foundation website, or just type in, I think it's like you said, Google, just type in, United States Senator. I mean, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
I would say...
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like really easy.
Last year was a little more complicated even for me because when you want to find your representative, there's a lot of them. So I wrote to mine.
Yes.
I said, I'd like to interview you. They said, they're not my representative. Well, then they sent me to another one. I ended up honestly dizzy. And I said, do I have to still pay taxes? This is a joke. Nobody knows. But luckily, I found who it was, and that was that. But, that's now it's so, important that, we only have one senator, two senators of the state. So it's easier, but it's important.
It's a little bit easier to find them.
We need people literally to swamp the phones and keep calling, and even if they agree, just tell them how important it is. And it's really cool, in my opinion, that again this year, once it's passed, obviously I'll still advocate, but it won't be I can't really say you can go call your congressman or senators, at least for this. I mean, you could always still support other things.
Right. Well, and it's so, it's also a big year, so it's good that this is happening at the beginning of the year, because
well, that's the thing. If we don't
it's easier to swamp the phones right now.
We don't have enough people calling and getting this pushing. I mean, this is an urgent bill. We laugh or talk or I joke a little, but it's for me because I'm not diagnosed, but all the people I'm friends with and things, they need it now, and they needed it yesterday. So I'm always told by the Michael J. Fox Foundation, the most important word is urgency for everyone.
Yeah. So, what we're gonna
let's also hope it is. Let's hope it is passed before the election, because, like you said.
Yeah, that's right. It will. That's the plan. That's the plan. Well, I just want to thank you so much for not only coming and joining me today on the podcast and sharing a little bit about what you're working on and inviting us to join you in this advocacy work and actually making a difference. I think, like I mentioned at the beginning, sometimes as caregivers, we feel like we don't have control over a lot of things, but we do have control over how we use our voice. And so I thank you for using yours here today in honor and memory of your mother. And I thank you for encouraging us and giving us an action step to take to use our voices to help find a cure for Parkinson's. And I'm going to put all of your information in the show notes. Is there any other encouragement that you want to share with caregivers today before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to thank you and the Guilt for Good audience for giving me this time. It means the world. I mean, even if we reach one person, now my mother will be remembered a little bit more. I always say the journey of the other people out there that I don't know about is the one that's heartbreaking, so reach out anytime. TogetherForSharon.com is really just me. It sounds funny because when, like you said, I have 70 social media. I don't know how I got all this, and it's great, but it's, people look at me like I must have an organization and found it. We didn't want that. I try to help. We do not accept donations, but you can link to our page and donate to other organizations like the Parkinson's Foundation and the American Parkinson's Disease Association, which my family has raised and donated about $12,000 so far in the last few years. I didn't want a foundation because, again, it gets very technical with the money. I'd rather maybe in the future. And when I say that, I actually hope I don't have to. I hope we find a cure before that. But, TogetherForSharon.com, again, you'll see great things like our story, my mother's. You'll see all the interviews of all the individuals completely free. There's no catch. Again, I'm not selling anything except a cure, hope for a cure. Also, you'll see our podcast. Hopefully someday it'll be up there. We've started our own podcast. I work with people who have Parkinson's, and we have a little fun show where we just talk. There's no plan. There's no script. It's called Unscripted. Also, just a lot of my media and things. But again, I still learn every day from each and every person I meet, and I always try to leave every podcast or conversation with this. We love you. We support you. We care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I will advocate, also Jeanette will, for you. And together our voices are so much stronger. And I always say I'm just getting started, even though I've done it for 4 years, but I feel like every day, like I'm meeting you and your audience, we really are just, feels like we just got to keep starting. When you're tired, when you're drained or things like the words you mentioned earlier, stressed, you got to sit back, think about others, and just get started again. So again, I'm really grateful for the time and hope this continues on together for a long, long journey, and also some, not just inspiration, but a cure finally for Parkinson's disease. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for joining me today in From Guilt to Good podcast. We are a proud member of the Whole Care Podcast Network, and to connect with George or access additional self-care resources that help you feel good, not guilty, check out the description on YouTube or the show notes for the audio episode. Subscribe now and join me in going from guilt to good so that you can rediscover your worth, reclaim your health, and get back to the life you've been too busy to enjoy. And if you've enjoyed this show, please take a moment to leave us a review. Your feedback is important. We're redefining self-care for caregivers one episode at a time. And until next time, remember, you are worthy of the same care that you give others.